Hi everyone, I'm Kent Singer, the Executive Director of the Colorado Rural Electric Association. CREA is the statewide trade association representing all of Colorado's electric co-ops, the 22 distribution co-ops, as well as Tri-State G&T. Looking back at 2020, it was quite a year for this association and of course for all of your co-ops. Before the pandemic hit in March and April, it started out as a typical sort of year for CREA. Things changed in March. On March 9, we had our Spring Managers Luncheon. And then that evening, I was at home watching the Denver Nuggets play. And before that game ended, the NBA had actually suspended the season. It became clear that things were really going to change in Colorado and across the country as the result of this pandemic. The CREA staff had to think a lot about how we would provide the services we normally provide in terms of government relations, communications, safety and loss control, and education, the four functional areas that we have served for many decades. For the rest of 2020, we readjusted and simply found new ways to provide the same sort of information and content that you all need and expect from CREA. This is a really exciting and dynamic time for our industry and particularly for the co-ops. We hope you enjoy the rest of this video, which highlights the accomplishments of CREA in the year 2020. Thank you again for your support of CREA.
Hi, I'm Jeff Heyer, Director of Government Relations for CREA. I spend most of my time before the Colorado General Assembly representing our membership on regulatory and legislative issues. When 2020 kicked off, CREA was very actively engaged in a couple pieces of legislation, one on beneficial electrification for schools and the other one on broadband issues in rural areas. We were successful in getting both of those bills passed and signed by the governor before the pandemic hit and the General Assembly took their break until June. We had to educate ourselves on remote learning and Zoom meetings and things like that, but we stayed active in that interim, still meeting with legislators. There were 33 other bills that we had an interest in, and we did develop a paper that is going to end up in legislation in the 2021 session. Tim Coleman, one of our policy analysts, spent a lot of time working on a wildfire paper that explored different policy options on how we were going to identify and prevent or reduce anyway wildfires. Colorado has term limits, so about 30% of our General Assembly turns over every election cycle. So it's an ongoing process to educate them and get them to support our positions, or at least use us as a resource. We're very proud of the work that we did in 2020. We're going to keep that up in 2021 and continue to serve our membership and member owners at the end of the line.
I'm Liz Fittis. I'm the Director of Member Services and Education for the Colorado Rural Electric Association. I organize education programs, and I also do all of the meeting planning for CREA. We started the year of 2020 with a lot of momentum. We had most all of our education classes already scheduled, and we were able to hold our annual meeting, which was exciting because we were starting to celebrate our 75th anniversary. Then COVID-19 hit, and we had to rethink everything that we had done. We had to cancel many of our in-person meetings and take all of our education and training virtual. By the end of the year, we had 140 speakers speak at the director meetings, at the education classes, and at the manager meetings. So it was a busy year for us. Two of the programs that I'm most proud of are the youth programs. We normally would take high school students to Washington, D.C. every year. Then we'd also take about 100 students to the youth leadership camp near Steamboat. Unfortunately, we had to cancel those programs this year, but instead we were able to offer them a leadership webinar, and we were able to give out 15 $500 scholarships, which we've never been able to do before. Despite having to cancel so many events, we were able to retool the department and carry forward and continue bringing services to the electric co-op employees and directors. We look forward to 2021 and getting the opportunity to meet together in person.
My name is Dale Kishbaugh with the Colorado Rural Electric Association. I'm the Director of Safety and Loss Control. My team goes out and performs the safety training for the electrical co-ops in the state of Colorado. As Jeff's department brought out the wildfire mitigation white paper, it was a very timely paper that came out, especially being that the state of Colorado was dealing with so many wildfires at the time. My department helped with a lot of the research and the issues involved with the fire mitigation. CREA played a critical role in the mutual aid with the Mountain Parks fire this past October. Over 6 electrical cooperatives in the state of Colorado stepped up and helped assist with rebuilding that infrastructure. There was actually 2 employees that had lost their homes during that fire. With the Mountain Park staff being personally affected and emotionally affected by this fire that just devastated their community, it was key to be up there to assist with putting housing together and meals together for the crews. This was a critical stage this past year where we really put forth a lot of effort to assist one of our co-ops in need. We just recently received a declaration which has approved all the funding for both the state and for FEMA for us to rebuild and help recoup some of the financial impact from the fire. Mountain Parks was not the only co-op affected by natural disasters this year. The CREA safety and loss control staff was there to assist many of our co-ops during natural disasters, as we always do and we always will. The CREA safety and loss control staff is dedicated in supporting our electrical co-ops and find ways to make sure that safety is a top focus for all of our distribution linemen throughout the state of Colorado.
I'm Mona Neely, Director of Communications for CREA. Our department works on communication for the association, as well as working with the local electric co-ops communications departments. With everything going on in 2020, communications was more important than ever. Our department worked with all the other departments at CREA to communicate the changes in programs, the cancellations, the postponements, the new things that were scheduled. We helped them get these messages out to the local co-ops, to your consumer members, and to others that needed those messages. Our digital monthly newsletter, Co-op Report, continued to go out each month, keeping everyone inside the family up to date on all of the changes that were happening for CREA and its member co-ops. The digital Energy Innovations newsletter continued to share the co-op story with legislators and other opinion leaders. We never missed a beat. Graphics were designed, messages were crafted, and artwork was found for all of the digital and print projects needed by all of CREA's departments. And even though there was some concern when Colorado first went to its safer at home status as to whether or not Colorado Country Life could be A, printed and B, delivered by the post office, we never missed an issue. We heard that this helped co-op consumer members feel a bit more reassured about this unprecedented situation the pandemic put us in. The magazine from their local electric co-op arrived on time, as always, letting them know the electric co-op was there for them, even in these unsettling times.
As you've heard, this past year, 2020, CREA's 75th year was a year like no other in our history. Our staff rallied together to seamlessly provide the same services we have provided to all of you, our co-ops, our members, for the last 75 years. CREA also established a wildfire relief fund, taking $50,000 that had been allocated for our Bolivia International project and instead dedicating that to a fund to help support people impacted by the wildfires. This idea was initiated by staff, but fully supported by the board. The establishment of this Wildfire Relief Fund is another example of how co-ops are concerned about their communities, one of the core principles of the electric co-op program. 2020 was a challenging year for CREA, but I can't tell you how proud I am of all of our employees who rallied together to find new ways to provide service to all of our members, you, Colorado's electric co-ops. We look forward to continuing to provide those services in 2021 and many years beyond. Thank you again for all of your support of CREA.